Dylan, I can't believe you don't like the sploot.
Well, it made me a little uncomfortable, I'm not going to lie.
Stephen Edwin King is an American author called the King of Horror. He has also explored other genres. We covered one of those on this here show. This is actually the third book of his that we've done. And so if you do not know about King, you can find a vast amount of information on him on the net. Most likely you have seen a show or a movie inspired by one of his stories. And so we are covering one of those today called You Like It Darker. Robert, share with us a little bit about what we're doing today.
So You Like It Darker is a collection of short stories by Stephen King. There's 12 in total, and we're going to do some episodes. We're going to have one like this week, and some episodes will have multiple depending upon how long the stories are. Mm-hmm. This week's episode is called Two Talented Bastids. And the story follows Mark taking care of his elderly father, Laird Carmody. I think I said that right. I may have been wrong. A world-famous author when he can no longer safely care for himself due to old age. Laird is being hounded by a journalist for information because he and his best friend Butch seemingly came from nothing in a small town to almost overnight instant success in their respective fields of art. So what is the secret behind Laird and Butch's success?
And you gotta love that name. Come on. And it actually is Bastids. Like you said.
I didn't listen to the audiobook, so I don't know if I'm gonna butcher names as we go. I'm kind of hoping for you to save me.
I'll try my best.
I'm happy that it is pronounced Bastids.
That's
exactly how I read it
right.
in my head.
What's that one movie from Boston? Ben Affleck and his boy Matt Damon. What was that one called?
Well,
real famous movie.
Well, there's The Departed, but I don't think Ben Affleck's in that one. Matt Damon is, though. Leonardo DiCaprio, Jack Nicholson, one of my all-time favorite movies.
All right, go on. Sorry. I just derailed us really quick.
Now we're going to get back on track, guys. So, Laird and Butch, they've been small-town men their entire lives. They grew up best friends. They all worked in their town. And as they got older, they even kind of made a name for themselves in their town, and they kind of ran the town dump. And then they were like volunteer firefighters. And around this town dump, Butch was an aspiring painter. So he kind of paint murals all around the dump to kind of make it nicer for the city because the walls of a dump, yeah. So he kind of make them nice. And then on the other hand, Laird, he always dreamed of being an author, but he could never quite get like anything he would write to stick or felt good enough or couldn't really figure out how to get a story to go. But then one day when they were in their mid 40s, they like struck it big. And the odd thing was they did it at the exact same time. And that first third of the book is kind of establishing the central mystery. How did Laird and Butch achieve this?
Yeah. So, right out the gate with the way that this started. So this is with the short stories. This was 3 chapters total in this. And the first chapter, I liked the setup. And to be honest, when the first chapter ended, I was like, man, how are you going to, how are they going to solve this mystery in like 2 more? Like it felt so vast and felt like there was so much. I loved I can't remember the dad's name, the writer, the author, man.
Oh, it was Laird Carmody. Yeah.
Yeah. There you go. I liked when the reporter comes to the house uninvited. I should talk to the son. He's like, there's no way he'll ever do an interview with you or whatever. And the son and the dad are walking through, checking out the flowers and all that kind of stuff. And she comes up to the fence. And so when she starts talking to him, I love the way he challenged her. He goes, I tell you what, I'm going to give you the greatest gift or whatever. You can ask me any 3 questions you want, knowing what he was doing, knowing he's putting her on the spot, knowing that this is a challenge, knowing that she's probably not going to ask him all the questions that she wants. So he's making her have to choose from the 500 questions that she'd probably sit in a room and ask him. And I thought that was a really cool scene. Probably my favorite scene in the first, because it just kind of shows like, that, hey, this dude might be 88 years old or whatever he was at this point, but dude's still kind of on top of his game as far as like trolling.
Yeah, for sure, dude. I actually really like that scene too. And it was in that scene that Stephen King gave us like all the backstory we really needed.
Oh yeah.
For Laird and Butch and their friendship and, you know, everything that evolved. And we kind of learned that Laird and Butch, woo.
That's staying in. I don't even care, bro. That's staying in. That's 100% staying in. That's not going anywhere. It's Butch. It's Butch. Hey, Butch was the man, dude. Okay,
Butch was the man.
He's in no way, shape, or form that thing that Robert said he was just a second ago.
No, not at all. I got to recompose. So Laird kind of stayed in Harlow his whole life, but Butch, he kind of dips and he goes to Seattle when he gets famous, to the point where Butch and Laird don't even really communicate, or it's alluded to. These two best friends quit communicating when, like, every year they would take a camping trip in the woods, which is something that the interviewer learned from her 3 questions. They would all go out to the woods. They'd take a week long. They would just hunt, stay in this cabin, and they would just have a bro trip every year. But then in like 1978, something changed. Laird came back like he had seen a ghost. And then, you know, you kind of get to the point where Laird passes away and he leaves Mark a key. And in that key, Mark finds a manuscript that Laird wrote detailing that day in the woods. And that takes us to the second part of the book.
What blows me away about the death is I didn't know, and I haven't looked it up to see how, and I'm sure because, I mean, Stephen King is, I feel like probably a very well-researched writer. But dude, he breaks his hip and dies the next day.
Yeah.
I'm like, what happened?
I think at the very beginning of the book, because when I went back and I was kind of going over my highlights, that kind of struck me as weird too. Like he broke his hip and died the next day, and I know he was owed.
Which I know he had the brittle bone type, whatever that disease was.
At the beginning of the book, though, they said that he died from when he was on his way to the hospital. He had several small strokes, and then he had one big stroke. So I guess when they were operating on the broken hip, he stroked out, and he had several strokes on the way to the hospital. That stroke thing is like in the first page of the book. So I completely forgot it by the time I got to the hip breaking.
Well, I forgot about it until you just now said it. Now it was rushing back to me. Yeah, that kind of took me back. But yeah, I thought that was interesting. You know, he goes down and he's like, hey, I want you to take this. And I listened to the audiobook, and I'll say this, like the accent was all New England, Boston. And dude, it enhanced it big time for me.
I'm buying it.
Dude, all the people who narrate Stephen King books are unbelievable. So I mean, just truthfully, Holly was amazing. This is so far amazing. Now I've only done this first story. I don't know if it's the same narrator all the way through, but he does a great job with those Boston accents, and it just kind of brings you into the whole vibe of it. One thing that really stood out to me in this is just Stephen King. The minor details that he adds to things is unbelievable. Like, and I know we're getting ready to go into chapter 2, but the only thing I could think of off the top of my dome is when, you know, when Butch and they're eating the pies or whatever.
Yeah.
They're like glazed pie. He goes, well, it's not really a glaze, is it? But it's like a sugar. You know what I'm talking about?
It's like host. I could picture that little hostess pie based off his description, like that flaky white glaze. It flakes off when you hold them. Yeah.
And he says it's a glaze. Well, it's not really a glaze, is it? It's more of like a sugar coat. Like the way he said that, I was like, oh, I know exactly what it is. You know what I mean? Like just the details that Stephen King throws into these things is just so out of this world, and it brings you into the story. And I was actually telling you this too, Robert, like living in rural areas. Like, I mean, you know, I moved to Columbus, Indiana, and this isn't like podunk town by any means, but like I was driving today as I was listening to this through the middle of nowhere, Indiana, and the way that Stephen King sets up an area, it just makes everything come to life for you, because they're talking about it being a redneck town, a small town, like this place where nothing really happens. And they have, one restaurant and the grocery store, and the way that he just describes the town and the people within the town, you feel like, okay, I know exactly where this is, even though I've never been here. I know what this is. He just does a really good job of describing areas and scenes and characters, and it just is starting to shine through even in this short story.
Yeah, absolutely, dude. I'll echo that. I'll echo that in the second chapter when we get to Butch and Laird's camping trip. The details, he set the stage. Like, dude, I could see myself in this cabin, in these woods, and just the way he gets the description going and actually kind of like adds tension to it. So, like, for instance, they have to cross this rickety bridge to get to the cabin, and they go one at a time because they're afraid their weight will make this little bridge collapse. I'm not going across that bridge, bruh. I don't care what cabin's over there. I'm out. But they did it. They did the thing. But we get to that second chapter. They're in the woods. They're setting the stage for everything. And after a couple days, Butch is like, man, the oddest thing. Like, listen. And Laird's kind of listening. He's like, I don't hear anything. And Butch is like, exactly. We're in the woods. Like, where's the nature? Where's the birds? Where's the squirrels? Where's the deer? And to me, that's like, that started to raise like suspense and kind of a little bit of like dread. Because if I'm in the woods and I don't hear like wildlife around me, I'd be creeped out too, man.
Well, you remember like when the one crow caws or whatever, he goes, oh, there you go, there's a bad, or whatever. However the accent, dude, my Boston accent needs some work, but he says it and he goes, it's one crow, no big deal, like, dude, they sound like mobsters in this and it's hilarious. But anyway, he's like, it's one crow, no big deal, he goes, but it's wildlife, it's just like they kind of have their banter in this is like, it's just two bros hanging out in the woods, like trolling each other. I love it. But yeah, dude, that was a very cool, suspenseful moment. I'm ready to talk about what happens next, bro.
Man, what happens next is pretty much what I loved. Like the whole time I thought the story was going to be something else. But when it flipped and turned into what it was and there was aliens, I was like, okay, I love aliens. Let's freaking go, baby. So they had Butch saw like some lights and some clouds, and the way he described them was really cool. But by far, my favorite part of this is like he gets his camera. He's taking pictures of these lights. And Stephen King makes a little note that, years later, Butch has this film developed, and his pictures of this alien spaceships is all blurry and grainy, and you can't tell what it was, even though it was a clear day outside and nothing was marring his camera lens. I love that as a play on why every time we have a UFO sighting or an alien sighting or Bigfoot, it's some grainy footage.
Or a dragon flying around a castle.
Hey, that was a great one, dude. I love that like little tidbit for me. Like that's good.
Well, and I like too, because they did the most human thing ever in that scene, is afterwards. It's like, well, what do you think? Isn't there a town that's like 15 miles up this way? Could it have been the lights reflecting off of the cloud that's creating this imagery? And maybe we're just seeing, they start going through all of it. And it's Laird that's going through and saying all these things. And then Butch is sitting there in silence. He goes, that's all bull crap, isn't it? And Butch is like, yeah. Yeah, dude, we saw what we saw, but I'm just sitting here thinking, I'm like, I would do that,
I would too, yeah.
Because the last thing you want to say is that, hey, I saw alien spacecraft. Me and Robert, we were out in the woods and we saw aliens. It's like, do you want to go home and say that to your friends? No, I'm going to start trying to dude, did we actually see what we saw, And he did that. And so it just added to the complexity of like how we would react in that situation. I think that was very much what we all would do. Exactly.
And you try to comprehend something that you can't explain.
Sure.
And I could see me definitely doing that. That was a good call. They kind of go to sleep, I think. Like it spooks them after that happens. They're like, we're going to get out of here. So the very next day, they're trying to leave at first light, and they get to the rickety bridge, and they find a woman passed out on the bridge. So they both run out there and get her. And she ended up being an alien. And the way he described the aliens was really cool. Like Laird grabs her boots to try and pick her up, but his hands go like into her boots. and like they said her legs kind of look like corduroy pants. And he described it as if she was made out of Play-Doh, or they used the phrase Gumby, which for the Dylans and younger, Gumby was like a green humanoid-like creature made of clay back from
Dylan,
90s.
have you ever heard of Gumby, bro?
I've heard of Gumby before.
But you know, when he's doing mouth to mouth, he was like, it reminds me of like the plastic that people put over couches or whatever. And he's talking about like, he's like, this is the weirdest thing, but he kept doing it. So like, and it's interesting because as that alien is coming back around or whatever, because they're doing the mouth to mouth, and then they get an EpiPen and do all the EpiPen thing and all that stuff. And as that alien starts to, I guess, recover, the clothing starts to take more shape, and they're like, and what was it? He was like, "Hey, check her pockets now. I bet you can maybe even find a mint or some change in there." You know, like,
yeah,
because it's all becoming, you know, different. You know, that was very interesting take on aliens, which I dug too. It was really, really cool.
Dude, it was actually, and it was kind of creepy too. They like bring her back to the cabin and throw her on the couch, and they're trying to communicate with her. And then like this light just fills the room up and they pass out.
Yeah.
And I remember, I think it was in Butch's head they were going through. Like, he's just like, oh, this is what it's like when you die.
Yeah.
And he never expected to wake up from that. And you're kind of in this person's frame of mind as they think if they're taking their last breaths, which Stephen King, man, shout out, because I was into that scene.
Yeah. Well, he even said, didn't he say something along the lines of like, it was such an intense moment that he welcomed it. He was like, I'm okay with this ending now, kind of thing. And it was, which was pretty crazy. So yeah, that was crazy. Then you got the next scene.
The next scene where like the young man sitting on the couch, they awaken from that like near death experience they thought they were having to an alien chilling on the couch. He's just hanging out. And then we go from there, dude. That's where he has a case, and I think it was described as a metal silver case that looked like something you keep glasses in.
Yeah. It's like a waves on it or something, right?
Yeah, you're right. It had waves in the center of it. And he said the way it works is you have to breathe on this case, and it will open and it will give you a gift, but only if like the talent was already there. Otherwise, it's axiomatic. It's not going to give you something that you don't possess. And they kind of asked this alien questions like, what are you guys doing here? And I thought it was cool. The alien's like, oh, we collect junk. We just like to go to yard sales and buy your like random stuff and analyze it.
Well, it's funny because he said what, Judge Judy picture,
Judge Judy.
like autographed Judge Judy picture, and then like they gave the alien a beer, and he's like, "Can I keep this can?" And Butch was like, "I mean, you're taking a 10 cents deposit from me, but you know, do what you need to do. I'll let it go since you're from another planet or whatever." And so, yeah, they just basically, what do you call? He said it's the French word veneer. And they're like, you mean souvenir? And he's like, oh yes, we collect souvenirs from planets. There's not very many planets that have, you know, intelligent life or whatever.
And my favorite part of that interaction with that alien, which Stephen King fans, you guys know what's up right here. I definitely was like, okay, I get that reference. They ask him about like the rest of the universe, like what's some of the other life forms like out there. And he goes, oh, well, the rest of the universe is mostly dead lights. And that was like a little bit like, oh man, because, you know, if you're the big fans of it will know Pennywise is a dead light. He's made up of those dead lights. And I believe dead lights are referenced in Stephen King's Dark Tower book. So I like how he like always is trying to connect all his stuff together. But love that little nod. Shout out Pennywise, by far Stephen King's most iconic character.
Yep. So, I mean, you know, after that, you know, we can start to get ready for our lightning round. But just there's one question I want to ask you, but I want to get to that point first. Yeah. You know, they get to this box. The alien leaves a box and tells them, hey, because you gave breath to my friend, Yellow or whatever, Yella. I think that was the alien's name, the girl's name, what they say. He's like, we wanted to give you a gift. You know, you gave breath, so you need to breathe on this box, essentially. And so they both breathe on the box. And when they inhale, they get like a mint or spearmint flavor type thing. And then they pass out, essentially. Yep. And they're like, well, did we just get poisoned? And they wake up the next morning, and Butch is able to draw or paint. I think it was draw. He drew a picture of the alien guy who came, but his eyes were made of stars, essentially.
Yeah.
Whatever was like, what's the other character's name again, dude? You've said it 1,000. Laird. Wow, dude, man. Laird's like, this is amazing. That looks amazing, you know? And he's like, in his mind, you could tell it's like way better than what Butch usually does. And Laird's starts to develop an idea for his own story, a story that he wrote, when he was younger, or at least thought through when he was younger, but could never really bring to fruition. And so he starts to be able to put stories together and all this stuff. And so then, this is kind of where their gifts or the things, the arts that they loved, they became, like you said earlier, excelled at it. They became famous for it after this trip. And so, the son goes out to the cabin, and here's where one of my questions jumps in. I want to ask you this because I wasn't 100% sure I caught what happened here. Okay. How the son, so the son reads all this. I don't want us to get lost in this, but, the son reads this whole story his dad wrote about what happened that night. His son's like, well, I want to go out to the cabin. Something's going on. There's taxes paid. And they explain some of that for 40 years because they wanted to keep the cabin untouched. And so he goes out to this cabin that is clearly, has not been kept up. No one goes out and takes care of this cabin. It's just this rundown cabin. So he goes out there. There's subdivisions built around this land, and he's talking about how he's assuming it's been vandalized. Kids have probably been out there and messed with it. All these different things. The box that his dad wrote about is probably gone, but he shows up. And he's like, it was as if there was a ring around it protecting the cabin. I don't know if I fully grasped why. You know what I'm saying? Like, okay, so this cabin's untouched, but you do have subdivisions around it. Stuff's starting to be built around it, so it's not like this super rural area anymore. People are starting to inhabit those spaces. And so we all know, man, a building's abandoned, people are going in it. We're doing those things. And so, but he makes kind of like, it feels to me at least like it's kind of a big deal. Like when King was even writing it, it felt as if he was implying that there was something happening that prevented people from doing it, unless I've just completely missed something there.
So he did describe that there was a ring around where the cabin was, but it was like the Butch and Laird had put a fence up, like a property fence, and they had like no trespassing signs all over it.
But the trespassing sign was goofy though, remember?
Yeah, it was like don't hoppity on my property or something, like put a frog goofy on it. He described when Mark got through the fence to the cabin like itself was kind of dilapidated and it was getting run down, and he went in the cabin and it was like mice had taken over and stuff, but like that couch was still there, albeit like full of bugs and mice. And then he found the case on the mantle. Why that case would have remained there all those years untouched, I don't know, because I'm kind of like you. I feel like at some point some teenagers are growing in there. There's going to be like some local urban legend around that, dude.
Yeah. Well, and the way you described it was that like the only destruction of the cabin was really age. Yeah. Like, the roof from the snowfall, and like you said, mice and bugs and dust. Cause he was talking about when he looked at the couch, it was like, I would sit on that couch, but then I'd be sitting on a layer of dust and mice might come running out from underneath of it. But he was talking about how he was kind of looking around the cabin and he could picture like his dad and Butch hanging out in that corner, and they even found some beer cans or whatever and things like that. So I don't know. For some reason I was like, well, is he implying that there's some sort of protection over this cabin or what? Because he even said, he goes, the sign hippity don't hoppity on my property ain't going to keep kids off of property. And so I don't know. That was one of my things where I was like, I don't know what's going on with this. Maybe I'm missing something here.
Dude, I think you definitely done put something in my head that I didn't even think too much about. So now I'm wondering if there's something there I missed.
Hey, you know what? If you're doing this book club with us, that's why we're doing the book club. Maybe we missed something. If you know what that something is, man, share it with us in Discord. We need to solve the mystery of why this cabin was left untouched. All right, bro. Before we get in the lightning round, you got anything else?
This was a really strong start to the short story collection. I was blown away. I was like initially kind of nervous going in, but after reading this one, I'm excited to read the rest of them. For
Heck
sure.
yeah, dude. Heck yeah. All right. Well, let's get into lightning round. We all know what the deal is with this. We have a few questions that we're going to ask, and there's a couple of these that even our boy, sweet baby Dylan, can jump in on with us. You have 1 minute to answer each of these. Let's go ahead and get it popping. If you were to blow on the case, because we mentioned that they had to use their air because they gave air to Yellow. You guys get your minds out the gutter, okay? Get your minds out the gutter. If you were to blow on the case and suddenly be a world-class talent at something, what would it be? Dylan, we'll start with you, bro.
I'd be a unicyclist.
What an answer.
There's not even anything to say about that. I mean, all right. Cool. Dylan wants to join the circus. Robert.
I believe I would go back to the 13 minutes when I thought I was going to be a food blogger, and I would just run with it, dude. I would just become a food blogger full time.
Wow. Okay. Nice. I thought about this a little bit, and I was like, I would music would be something, but I was like, man, I enjoy it. I already do it, not to like some world-class level. But if I were to do something I don't do currently, and I would be able to, I'd be a world-class linguist. I would learn multiple languages and be like a polyglot and be able to walk into a room of people who speak 15 different languages and be able to, speak to everybody and be really cool. So, all right, here we go. Robert, the young alien said, nothing can give you what isn't already there. Do you think the case enhanced their specific crafts, or was it a placebo effect? I don't know if we got a lot into that in our discussion, but that was kind of the thing, and that's what the alien told them when he gave them the box. So, Robert, what do you think?
So, initially, I thought it was a placebo effect, because they kind of established that Butch was an artist already with the dump murals, and Laird was already an author. He was just having trouble piecing things together. But the more I thought about it, the more I think, especially because of the end, I believe that when they blew on the case, they had that natural talent to be decent at something, and whatever power they got from the case took that talent and enhanced it and took it to the next level and kind of unlocked this other part of their brain to make it click and have it all come together for them.
Yeah, I would agree. Well, and I think one thing too is, when they woke up and he made the drawing of the young man.
Yeah.
And it was like worlds beyond what he was able to do before. And the fact that it wasn't that he was like, oh, look, I got this power now. He just woke up and decided to do that, and he did it just to a superb level. And so, yeah, I'm with you. All right, here we go. Why do you think the case stayed closed when Mark tried to open it?
He didn't have anything he was talented at. Stephen King throws a little bit of sad stuff in his book sometimes, and it's Mark's destiny, or his fate as it was written in this universe, was really not to be like some famous celebrity. It was just to live a humble ho-hum life in the small town of Harlow, man.
That was it. He did. It was kind of funny that now we're talking about this, how in the last, the last chapter, the last few pages, it really went into, well, let me tell you a little about me.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've never really done anything. I have no kids. My wife is gone. My dad's gone. I don't have anything going for myself, kind of deal. And like you said, yeah, definitely brought in a little sad moment there. So yeah, that's good. All right. Dylan, we'll start with you on this one. What is your favorite alien from pop culture?
So I feel like I'm kind of tied on two of these, but one, obviously, like I said earlier, Predator, I feel like is up there for sure. But also another one, Keaton actually talked about this when you guys were talking about Spielberg movies on the Ready Player One episode, and he was talking about the War of the Worlds aliens. Yeah. Dude, those have haunted me since I was a child. I think those are phenomenal. I actually love that movie a lot. So I would say those aliens. And every time I think of an alien invasion, I imagine that movie. So,
all right, Robert.
I'm going to go ahead and answer the cute little aliens from Toy Story because of the claw. That whole scene, dude.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good. I mean, did we talked about him recently? It's E.T. I've always liked E.T., bro. It's a great movie. All right, last thing. We always shut down our book segments with this question. Describe this one in 3 words, or give 3 words. It doesn't have to be describing the story necessarily, but 3 words that come to mind when you think of this story, Robert.
Aliens, not lovers.
Ooh, that's good. Hey, King called some people out in this one, didn't he? All right, I put my 3 were PG King story.
Hey, nice.
I feel like you don't have very many King stories that are PG. This one, he kept it PG, bro. As far as King stories go, outside that last few pages, this one felt fairly wholesome in a lot of ways.
I'll agree with that.
All right, guys. Well, that's it. That closes up our first ever of this kind of books club style deal, and we're excited to continue reading more of this one. Robert, give us the title of this story one last time. Use your best Boston accent.
All right, dude, let me line it up. Here we go.
Go.
2 talented bastards